Nothing was said. No accusation. No argument. No raised voice. Just silence. A door that closed a little too deliberately. A response that never came. A withdrawal so complete you could feel it in the room. And somehow, that silence communicated everything. You knew you had done something wrong. You just weren't sure what. So you replayed the last few hours, looking for the moment you'd crossed a line you didn't know existed. That's the thing about silent manipulation. It doesn't leave marks you can point to. There's nothing to quote, nothing to confront, nothing obvious enough to say, this is what happened. Just a feeling. A persistent, exhausting feeling that you are always one wrong move away from losing something you can't quite name. If that sounds familiar, this video is for you. Before going further, it's worth being precise about what we're talking about, because not every silence is manipulation. People go quiet when they're overwhelmed. They withdraw when they need space. They take time before responding when they're processing something difficult. None of that is inherently manipulative. Silent manipulation is something specific. It's the deliberate use of silence, withdrawal, or emotional unavailability as a tool to influence your behavior, without ever having to be accountable for doing so. The silent treatment. Stonewalling. Emotional withdrawal that arrives precisely when you assert yourself, ask a difficult question, or refuse to comply with something. What makes it manipulation rather than emotional regulation is the pattern. It's not random. It's not about needing space. It happens in response to specific things, your boundaries, your questions, your independence, and it reliably produces a specific result. You adjusting your behavior to make it stop. That adjustment is the goal, and the silence is the mechanism. The person using it rarely thinks of it as a strategy. It may feel completely natural to them, a learned response from childhood, a way of handling conflict that became automatic. That doesn't make it less harmful. It just makes it harder to name. Silent manipulation is one of the most difficult forms of control to identify for 3 specific reasons. First, it leaves no evidence. With verbal manipulation, there are words. You can remember them, replay them, question them. With silence, there's nothing to quote, nothing concrete enough to bring to someone else and say, look, this happened. The absence of something is very hard to prove and very easy to dismiss as oversensitivity. Second, it activates your own anxiety. Silence creates a vacuum, and humans are wired to fill vacuums with meaning. When someone withdraws without explanation, your mind doesn't stay quiet. It starts searching for reasons. And because the silence feels like punishment, the reasons you find tend to place the fault with you. You become the investigator, the judge, and the defendant simultaneously. The silent manipulator doesn't need to accuse you. Your own anxiety does it for them. Third, it's socially invisible. If someone screams at you in front of other people, everyone can see what's happening. But if someone gives you the silent treatment, withdraws affection, or becomes emotionally unavailable, no one else notices. There's nothing to point to. From the outside, they might even look like the calm one. This invisibility is part of what makes it so effective in long-term relationships. The pattern can persist for years without anyone else having any idea it's happening. Silent manipulation doesn't always look the same. Here are the 5 most common forms it takes, and what distinguishes each one from normal behavior. 1. The punishing silence. This is the most recognizable form. Something happened. You said no, you asked a question they didn't want to answer, you set a limit, and suddenly they go quiet. Not a process. To communicate displeasure. The silence is a message. You did something wrong, and you'll know it's over when they decide it's over. The key indicator is that it ends when you apologize, comply, or sufficiently demonstrate remorse, regardless of whether you actually did anything wrong. 2. Strategic withholding. This is subtler. It's not total silence, but selective silence. They answer some questions and ignore others. They're warm in public and cold in private. They engage with the parts of you that are convenient and withdraw from the parts that aren't. The pattern creates confusion because their behavior is inconsistent enough that you can never quite trust what you're reading. 3. The disappearing act. This one operates through availability. They become suddenly hard to reach, not because they're busy, but because you did something that triggered withdrawal. Texts go unanswered for hours or days. Plans become uncertain. Their presence becomes something you have to earn. Over time, you learn to manage yourself carefully to avoid triggering the disappearance. 4. Emotional stonewalling. Here, the silence isn't about ignoring you. It's about refusing to engage. You try to have a conversation about something important, and they go flat. One-word answers. No eye contact. Physical presence without emotional presence. The message is, I am here, but I am not available to you, and I will not tell you why. This form is particularly exhausting because it denies you the argument that might actually resolve something. 5. The silent scorekeeper. This is the most covert form. Nothing is said, but everything is tracked. Grievances accumulate invisibly. You sense a coldness without being able to locate its source. And then, at an unexpected moment, often completely unrelated to the original issue, the account gets settled. An explosion, a withdrawal, a sudden shift in the relationship's temperature. You're left trying to map what happened to something you can't remember doing. The first and most important thing is to stop filling the silence with self-blame. When someone withdraws, the most natural response is to search for what you did wrong. That search is exactly what the dynamic depends on. It keeps you focused on your behavior rather than on theirs, which is precisely where your attention needs to go. Instead of asking, what did I do? Ask, what does this silence follow? Look at the pattern. Does it appear after you said no? After you asked for something? After you expressed a need or set a limit? The pattern tells you far more than any single incident. The second thing, name it without confronting it. You don't need to accuse anyone of manipulation to change how you respond to it. You just need to see it clearly enough to stop adjusting yourself to make it stop. When the silence arrives, instead of anxiously managing your behavior to end it, try letting it be there. Don't apologize for things you didn't do. Don't fill the vacuum with reassurances designed to recover warmth you shouldn't have lost in the first place. The silence only works as long as you respond to it. When you stop responding the way it expects, the dynamic has to change. It may escalate before it improves, but it cannot continue unchanged. The third, consider what the silence is protecting. Silent manipulators are often people who never learn to handle conflict directly. The silence is a defense as much as it is a weapon. Understanding this doesn't mean excusing it, but it does mean that sometimes creating a genuine opening for direct conversation can shift things that seemed stuck. Not always. Some patterns are too entrenched to shift through conversation alone. But it's worth knowing before you decide what to do next. The most insidious thing about silent manipulation is how it makes you doubt your own experience. Because nothing was said, you have nothing concrete to point to. And so you question whether what you felt was real. It was real. The discomfort you felt was data. The pattern you noticed was real. The exhaustion of always managing yourself to maintain someone else's availability. That's not oversensitivity. That's the cost of a dynamic you didn't choose and probably don't fully see yet. Seeing it clearly is how it starts to change. Tell me in the comments if this described something you've lived. The 3 questions tool in the description was built for exactly this kind of situation. When you feel something is off, but there's nothing concrete enough to point to. The third question in particular is designed for moments where the silence has you doubting your own read. It's free, it's 1 page, and the link is below. The next video is about something this dynamic depends on entirely, your tendency to doubt what you clearly felt. The silent manipulator works because you talk yourself out of the signal. Because you replay the situation looking for what you did wrong instead of trusting what you already knew. If you've ever dismissed a feeling that turned out to be completely accurate, that's the next one. I'll see you there.